"Don't come inside me," Sarah Hartwell whispered, her virgin body trembling beneath the giant cowboy's frame. But Caleb Stone's 7 feet of raw frontier muscle had already crossed every line her preacher father drew. The church elder's innocent daughter was supposed to marry a good Christian man, bear proper children, live a proper life. Instead, she'd run away at 17 with the ranch hand her father called the devil himself. This is her story, a confession of forbidden love that shattered Cedar Ridge, Wyoming Territory, 1876. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button and stay until the very end. Comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Sarah's truth travels across this world. Through the crack in the church door, Sarah watched the giant swing his hammer. Each strike drove nails deep into fresh timber. Sweat darkened his shirt. Muscles moved under fabric like something alive. Caleb Stone, 7 feet tall, hands that could crush bone, eyes that looked at her like she was human. Sarah Elizabeth Hartwell. Her father's voice cut through the humid air. She jerked back from the door, cheeks burning. "I was checking if Mr. Stone needs water, Father." "You were spying." Reverend Samuel Hartwell's face had gone crimson, that vein in his temple pulsing. "Kitchen. Now." Sarah gathered her skirts and fled past him. Through the window, she caught one last glimpse, Caleb wiping his forehead, looking toward the church with something like concern. Her hands shook as she tied her apron. Mrs. Henderson was already kneading dough, her mouth set in a thin line. "That man's trouble. Mr. Stone is repairing the steps. That man walked into Cedar Ridge 6 months ago with nothing. No family, no past, no references." The older woman's hands worked the dough harder. "Your father should have sent him away." "Father says everyone deserves redemption." "God also sends temptation, child, tests to see if we'll fall." Sarah's throat tightened. At 17, she'd never fallen, never stumbled, never questioned. Born in Boston, mother dead in childbirth, raised on scripture and silence. Her life was a list of rules: morning prayers at 5, Bible study at 6, breakfast, without speaking, church work until noon, afternoon lessons, evening prayers, dinner at 7, bed by 8. No novels except Pilgrim's Progress, no music except hymns, no friends her own age, no choices. Until Caleb Stone ducked through the church door 3 months ago. She'd been playing the organ for Sunday service. Hit a wrong note when he entered. 7 feet tall, shoulders broad as an ox yoke, hands scarred and rough. He took the back pew alone because strangers sat alone in Cedar Ridge. After the sermon, her father approached him. "Welcome, I'm Reverend Hartwell." "Caleb Stone." His voice was deep quiet. "Fine sermon." "Passing through? Looking for work?" Her father studied him with narrowed eyes. "Running from something. Running toward something new." Sarah had been gathering hymnals nearby, moving slow to hear every word. "Church needs repairs," her father said finally. "Steps are rotting, roofs going. Can't pay much, but there's a room out back. Meals included. You attend every service, no drinking, no gambling, no women. Clear?" "Clear." "One more thing." Her father's voice dropped. "My daughter Sarah helps with church duties. You don't speak to her. You don't look at her. She's under my protection and God's. Understood?" Caleb's eyes found Sarah then. Just for a moment. Something passed between them, a question neither could answer. "Understood, Reverend." 3 months of him working dawn to dusk. 3 months of Sarah bringing water with downcast eyes. 3 months of stolen glances. 3 months of her father watching like a hawk over prey. "Sarah," Mrs. Henderson snapped. "You've kneaded that dough for 5 minutes straight. What's wrong with you?" "Nothing, I'm sorry." But through the window she could still see him, measuring boards, marking them with careful precision, nothing wasted in his movements. "Mrs. Henderson, what do you know about Mr. Stone?" The woman's hands stilled. Why? Father hired him. We should know something. Men like that are all the same. Drifters running from debts or crimes or women they ruined. They stay until trouble catches up, then vanish. Mrs. Henderson shaped the dough into loaves. Mark my words that man will bring nothing but heartache. What if he's just looking for honest work? Child, you're 17. You've never left your father's side, never spoke to a boy, never been courted. You don't know men. She fixed Sarah with a hard stare. I buried 2 husbands. I know exactly what men want, and it ain't honest work. The words hung heavy between them. I need to take him water, Sarah said. It's hot. I'll do it. Father asked me to tend the workers. It's my duty. Mrs. Henderson sighed. Don't linger, and don't let your father catch you making eyes. Sarah filled a pitcher at the well. Her pulse hammered as she approached Caleb. He was driving nails into new timber, each strike perfect. He saw her and stopped, straightened, wiped sweat with his forearm. Miss Hartwell? Mr. Stone. She held out the pitcher. Water. Thank you. He drank deep. She watched his throat work, fascinated by something so simple. She'd never been this close before, close enough to see the scar above his eyebrow, the stubble on his jaw, the gray blue of his eyes. Hot day? She said, then felt foolish. Of course it was hot. Yes, ma'am. The steps look good. Should be done tomorrow. Tomorrow. One more day, then he'd move to the roof. Fewer reasons to see him. Mr. Stone, where are you from? He glanced toward the church, checking for her father. Montana, worked ranches. Do you have family? His expression shuddered. No, ma'am. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry. It's all right. He handed back the pitcher. Your father's protective. Best you get inside. He means well. He worries. He should. World's full of dangerous men. Are you dangerous, Mr. Stone? The question surprised them both. Caleb's eyes met hers, and for a long moment neither breathed. Yes, Miss Hartwell, I am. Have you hurt people? I've done things I'm not proud of. Is that why you came here to start over? Something like that. She knew she should leave, knew her father was probably watching, but her feet wouldn't move. I've never started over, she said quietly. I've only ever been what father tells me to be. That's not bad. Safe is good. Safe is suffocating. His mouth almost curved. Almost. Suffocating keeps you alive. Does it make you feel alive? Before he could answer, her father's voice cracked through the air. Sarah inside now. She jumped, nearly dropping the pitcher. I'm sorry. Go. She ran back to the church. Her father grabbed her arm, not bruising but firm. What did I tell you about that man? I was bringing water, father. You were batting your eyes like a saloon girl. We barely spoke. I saw you, standing there looking up at him with that face. Do you know what men like him think when girls look at them that way? What way I wasn't. Don't lie. Sarah Elizabeth, I know temptation. Your mother. He stopped, jaw clenching. Your mother was innocent like you, pure, and the world tried to corrupt her. I won't let that happen to you. Father Mr. Stone has been nothing but respectful. For now, but men like him have appetites, dark hungers. One wrong look, one moment of weakness, and you're ruined. Ruined beyond repair. Do you understand? There was that word. Ruined. Yes, father. Go to your room, pray, and stay away from that man. Sarah climbed the narrow stairs to her room above the church office. A bed, a chair, a desk, a cross on the wall. Nothing else. No decorations except her Bible and one daguerreotype of her mother, stern-faced, already dying when the photograph was taken. She knelt and tried to pray, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she heard Caleb's voice. Yes, Miss Hartwell, I am dangerous. Why did that make her heart race instead of her skin crawl? She'd been taught good men were gentle, soft-spoken, devout. Men like the church deacons, balding, smelling of tobacco and righteousness. Men who quoted scripture and treated wives like furniture. Caleb was none of those things. That night at dinner, her father barely spoke. They ate in silence, salt pork beans, cornbread. The same meal every night. Afterward, she washed dishes while he read aloud. For the lips of a strange woman drop as an honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. His voice filled the kitchen. But her end is bitter, as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Sarah scrubbed a plate. Her feet go down to death. Her steps take hold on hell. Father, why are you reading me verses about adulteresses? Because temptation wears many faces. Sometimes it looks like strength, sometimes kindness. But underneath, it's always the same sin waiting to devour the faithful. I'm not being tempted. Aren't you? He closed the Bible. I see how you look at him. I don't. Don't lie. Lying is worse than the temptation itself. You're drawn to him. That's natural. You're a young woman, he's the first man outside these walls you've been near. But natural doesn't mean right. Sarah set down the plate. Her hands trembled. What does natural mean, Father? His face paled. Sarah, you keep talking about temptation and appetite and hunger. What am I supposed to want? This conversation is over. No. The word came out stronger than she intended. I'm 17. I've never been allowed to choose anything. You choose my clothes, my meals, my prayers, my every breath. Now you're telling me what my flesh wants. What about what I want? What you want is irrelevant. You're my daughter under my authority until I choose a suitable husband. Everything I do protects your immortal soul. Or controls me like you controlled Mother. The slap cracked across her cheek before she saw it coming. They stared at each other, both shocked. Sarah, His voice broke. You don't understand. Your mother was willful too. She questioned everything, and it led her into darkness. He couldn't finish. I'm trying to save you from her fate. What darkness? What happened to Mother? She died in sin, daughter. Died bringing you into this world because she... He turned away. Go to your room. We're done. Sarah climbed the stairs, cheek throbbing. Her father had never struck her before. Never even raised his voice until Caleb arrived. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Through her window, she could see Caleb's room, a single candle burning. Was he thinking about their conversation? About her questions? Sleep wouldn't come. Near midnight, she rose and pulled a shawl over her nightgown. She needed air, needed to walk, needed to breathe. Her feet carried her across the grass to his door. She knocked before fear could stop her. Footsteps. The door opened. Caleb stood there in an undershirt and work pants, hair mussed from sleep. Miss Hartwell, what is something wrong? I need to talk to someone, anyone. Her voice cracked. I need to know I'm not losing my mind. He glanced past her toward the main house. Your father is asleep. Please, 5 minutes. He stepped aside. Come in. Leave the door open. The room was small. A cot, a trunk, a table with the candle. Books stacked beside the bed. Whitman, Thoreau, Mary Shelley. You read, she said, surprised. When I can. He gestured to the chair. Sit. Tell me. She perched on the edge, suddenly aware of how improper this was. Alone with a man, in her nightclothes, in the dark. Every rule shattered. He hit me tonight, she said quietly. My father. I questioned him, and he hit me. Caleb's jaw went tight. Did he hurt you? Just my cheek. But he's never done that before. What did you question him about? She looked up. You. Silence stretched between them. Outside, a coyote howled. Miss Hartwell. Sarah. Please just call me Sarah. Sarah. He said it carefully, like the word might burn. You need to stay away from me. Your father's right to protect you. I'm not good for you. Why does everyone keep saying that? Why does everyone assume they know what's good for me? Because you don't know me, don't know what I've done. Then tell me. He sat on the cot edge, elbows on his knees. I worked cattle drives in Montana, 3 years moving herds from ranch to railroad. Brutal work. Men die from stampedes, weather accidents. But the worst is the violence between men. Arguments over cards, women nothing. I've seen men killed over spilled drinks. Did you kill anyone? He was quiet for a long moment. Yes. Her breath caught. Why? He was beating a woman, a saloon girl, beating her bloody because she refused him. I told him to stop. He pulled a knife. Caleb's hands fisted. I didn't mean to kill him, just meant to stop him. But I'm strong, Sarah, too strong. One punch and his skull. He stopped. I had to leave. Sheriff said self-defense, but the dead man's brother swore vengeance. So I ran. That doesn't make you evil. That makes you brave. No, it makes me dangerous. I hurt people even when I'm trying to help. Your father sees that. My father sees sin everywhere. Sarah stood abruptly. I'm 17, and I've never had a conversation like this. Never been asked what I think or feel or want. Never been treated like a person instead of property. Do you know what that's like? To be so alone, even surrounded by people. Caleb looked at her, really looked, and she felt something shift. Yes, he said quietly. I know exactly what that's like. Then tell me I'm not crazy for wanting more. Tell me there's a world outside these walls where people make their own choices. There is. But Sarah, tell me what it's like. Please, tell me everything. So he did. Caleb talked for hours. About Montana's endless skies and brutal winters. Cattle drives where men worked 36 hours straight. Towns where miners struck silver and went from rags to riches overnight. Books he'd read on night watch under stars. The first time he saw the Rockies. The crushing loneliness of drifting with no roots, no home, no one who knew his name. Sarah listened, hungry for every word. This was the world her father forbade messy, dangerous alive. Why did you stay in Cedar Ridge? She asked as dawn lightened the sky. Caleb didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was careful. Sometimes you find a reason to stop running. Their eyes met. Sarah's heart hammered. I should go, she whispered. Before father wakes. Yes. But neither moved. Caleb. Don't. He stood abruptly. Don't say whatever you're about to say. You're the preacher's daughter. I'm hired help with blood on my hands. There's no world where this ends well. There is no this, isn't there? His voice roughened. You're here in the middle of the night in your nightgown looking at me like... He stopped. Go, Sarah, please. She walked to the door, then turned back. Thank you for talking to me, for treating me like the person. You are a person. Never doubt that. Sarah slipped back across the grass as the sun broke over the horizon. She climbed to her room and lay fully clothed, mind spinning. She'd crossed a line tonight, spoken to a man alone, listened to stories her father would call sinful, felt things she couldn't name, and she wasn't sorry, not even a little. The next morning, her father announced Caleb would repair the roof next. It'll take weeks, Reverend Hartwell said at breakfast. Mr. Stone needs supplies from town. Sarah, you'll accompany me to Henderson's store. We're out of flour. The trip to town was the only freedom Sarah got walking through Cedar Ridge, with her father seeing other people, even if she couldn't speak to them. But today she noticed things she'd never seen before. The blacksmith's wife laughing at her husband's joke. The hotel owner's daughter flirting with a cowboy. People touching each other casually, affectionately, without fear or shame. Father, Sarah said carefully. How did you meet Mother? He stiffened. Why? I'm curious. You never talk about her. Your mother was from a good Boston family. Her father introduced us when I was studying ministry. We courted, properly married, quickly came west to spread the gospel. Did she want to come west? It was her duty as my wife. But did she want to? He stopped walking, face darkening. What your mother wanted was irrelevant. She made vows before God. Her desires were secondary to her obligations. So she didn't want to come. Sarah, enough. Your mother's story isn't yours to question. Did you love her? Of course. Did she love you? His silence was answer enough. They finished shopping in tense quiet. On the way back, they passed a young couple holding hands, laughing. The girl's face was radiant. Disgraceful, her father muttered. Public displays are improper. They look happy. Happiness is fleeting. Righteousness is eternal. That afternoon, while her father visited a sick parishioner, Sarah brought Caleb lunch bread, cheese, dried apples. He was on the roof, shirtless in the heat, replacing shingles. Miss Hartwell. Cautious. I made extra. Thought you might be hungry. Thank you. He climbed down. She handed him the basket. Their fingers brushed barely, just for a second, but Sarah felt electricity shoot up her arm. Caleb felt it too. She saw his breath catch, saw him pull back like he'd been burned. Last night shouldn't have happened, he said. But it did. And it can't happen again. He set the basket down untouched. Sarah, I'm leaving. I'll finish the roof, then I'm moving on. Your father's going to find you a husband, someone appropriate, and you're going to have the life you're supposed to have. What if I don't want that life? Doesn't matter. You're 17, sheltered. You think you understand the world because we talked for a few hours, but you don't. Out there. He gestured toward the horizon. Out there is hard. Men are hard. Life is hard. Your father's keeping you safe. My father's keeping me in a cage. Maybe. But cages protect as much as they trap. Would you want to live in a cage? His jaw worked. No. Then don't tell me I should be grateful for mine. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Sarah, wait. She looked back. If things were different, he said quietly. If I were different, if you were different. But we're not. No, we're not. Sarah walked back to the house, eyes burning with tears she wouldn't shed. 17 years of obedience. 17 years of being perfect. For what? To be married off to some church elder and live her mother's miserable life. That night, she wrote her first rebellion in her Bible's margins, words she didn't dare speak aloud. I want to choose. Just once, I want to choose. 2 weeks crawled by. Caleb worked the roof every day. Sarah brought water, food supplies, always with her father watching, always in silence. But their eyes spoke volumes. Her father grew more suspicious by the day. I've written to churches, he announced at dinner. There's a minister in Denver, 38, widowed, looking for a wife. I've described you. He's interested. Sarah's fork clattered to her plate. You're arranging my marriage? It's time. You're 17. Most girls are married by now. Without meeting him, without knowing him. I know him. That's sufficient. He's godly. He'll provide. What about what I want? What you want is to serve God through marriage and motherhood. That's every woman's highest calling. Did you ask Mother if that's what she wanted? His hand slammed the table. Your mother is dead. Sarah dead because she questioned her place. Dead because she thought she knew better than Scripture. I will not watch you follow her path. The words hung heavy with secrets. What do you mean? Sarah whispered. How did she die? Questioning. Enough. The subject is closed. The minister arrives in 3 weeks. You'll meet him. You'll be gracious. And you'll accept his proposal. And if I refuse, then you're no daughter of mine. She stood on shaking legs. Fine. What? If that's your choice, then I've already lost you. She walked to the door, then turned back. You know what Mother's real sin was, Father? It wasn't questioning you. It was marrying you in the first place. She ran to her room and locked the door. Outside her window, Caleb's lamp burned. She knew she shouldn't. knew it was dangerous, impossible. But she also knew she couldn't live like this anymore. At midnight, she slipped out again. This time when Caleb opened the door, he didn't look surprised. "He's marrying you off," Caleb said flatly. "You heard." "Whole town heard. Some minister from Denver." "I won't do it." Her voice shook. "I won't marry a stranger. You don't have a choice." "I do. I can run." He shook his head. "Run where? With what money? What skills, Sarah? You wouldn't survive a week alone." "Then come with me." The words shocked them both. "What?" "Come with me. We'll go somewhere far away. Somewhere my father can't find us." "Sarah, stop. You're talking about running away with a man you barely know. A killer. A drifter with nothing to offer." "You'd offer me freedom." "I'd offer you ruin." His voice was harsh. "Your father's right. If you run with me, you're ruined. No decent man will marry you. No town will accept you. You'll be a whore in their eyes even if we never touch." "I don't care what they think." "You say that now. But when you're hungry, cold, desperate, you'll care. You'll hate me for destroying your life." "You're destroying it by refusing." "No." He stepped closer. "I'm destroying it by wanting you as much as I do." Sarah's breath caught. "You want me?" "God help me, yes. I've wanted you since the first day I saw you at that organ looking like an angel. I've wanted you every time you brought water. Every time you smiled. Every time you looked at me like I was something more than a killer and a drifter." His hands clenched at his sides. "But wanting isn't enough. Wanting ruins everything." "Then ruin me." She closed the distance, rose on her toes, pressed her lips to his. For one heartbeat, Caleb froze. Then he was kissing her back, hungry, desperate, pulling her against him with shaking hands. Sarah had never been kissed, didn't know what to do, but her body knew. Her body melted into his like they were made for each other. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "This is wrong," Caleb said, but he didn't let go. "I don't care. Your father isn't here. For once he isn't here. It's just us. Just this moment. Please, Caleb, don't send me back to that cage." He closed his eyes at war with himself. Honor against desire. Duty against need. "If we do this," he said finally, "there's no going back. Your father will disown you. The town will shun you. You'll lose everything." "I'll gain everything." "You don't know what you're saying." "Yes, I do." She took his face in her hands. "I'm 17 years old, and I've never made a single choice about my life. Let me make this one. Let me choose you." His resolve shattered. He kissed her again, deeper, backing her toward the cot. Sarah's heart raced. She knew what came next. Had heard whispered stories from church ladies. It would hurt. It would change her. It would mark her as his forever. She wanted it anyway. But as his hands moved to her nightgown buttons, reality crashed in. This wasn't some story. This was real, her life, her future, her soul. "Wait," she gasped. He pulled back immediately. "I'm sorry. No. I want this. I want you. But—" Tears filled her eyes. "What happens tomorrow?" "Next week, father finds out you leave. I'm sent away. We never see each other again." He sat back, running hands through his hair. "I don't know. I can't just give myself to you and watch you disappear." "What are you asking?" "Marry me." The words tumbled out. "Marry me and then it's real. Then we're protected. A husband has rights over his wife, even against her father. Marry me and we can be together." Sarah. "I know it's insane. I know it's fast. But insane is better than Denver. Fast is better than a lifetime of misery." He stood and paced. "If I marry you, your father will never forgive us. He'll call it kidnapping, seduction, corruption. I'll be 18 in 2 months, old enough to choose." Not in his eyes. Then we wait until morning ride to Silverton, find a judge. We'll be married by noon. By the time father realizes I'm gone, it's done. He'll come after us. Let him. He can't undo a marriage." Caleb stared at her, this fierce girl who'd been locked away her whole life and was now throwing it all away for him. For freedom. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. "Once we do this, there's no going back." "I've never been more sure of anything." He crossed to her and knelt, taking her hands in his calloused ones. "Then yes. I'll marry you, Sarah Hartwell. I'll marry you and spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you." Tears streamed down her face. "Thank you. But we do this right. We leave before dawn, get married, then we figure out the rest together. I won't touch you until we're legally wed. Understand?" "Yes." "Pack light. Only what you need. Meet me at the crossroads at 4. Can you do that?" "Yes." Sarah kissed him once more, soft sealing the promise, then slipped back to the house. She didn't sleep. Instead, she packed one dress, her mother's daguerreotype, her Bible. She wrote a letter to her father, knowing he wouldn't understand, but needing to try. "Father, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I'm sorry for the pain this causes, but I can't marry the Denver minister. I can't live the life you've chosen for me. I'm marrying Caleb Stone. I know you see him as a sinner, but I see him as my salvation. He treats me like a person, not property. He asks what I want instead of telling me what to be. He makes me feel alive for the first time in 17 years. I don't expect you to understand, but I hope someday you'll forgive me. Your daughter, Sarah." At 4 in the morning, she crept down the stairs, left the letter on the kitchen table, and walked out of her father's house for the last time. Caleb was waiting at the crossroads with 2 horses. "Ready?" he asked. Sarah looked back at the church, dark and silent against the pre-dawn sky. Everything she'd ever known was in that building. Every rule, every prayer, every carefully constructed piece of her identity. She turned to Caleb and smiled. "Let's go." They rode toward Silverton as the sun rose, painting the sky gold and pink. Toward a future uncertain, dangerous, and entirely their own. The horses' hooves thundered on the hard-packed dirt. Sarah's heart hammered in rhythm. Behind them, Cedar Ridge disappeared into the distance. Ahead, Silverton and a judge who'd make this real. "You all right?" Caleb called over the wind. "I'm perfect." And for the first time in her life, she meant it. They reached Silverton by mid-morning, horses lathered with sweat. The town was bigger than Cedar Ridge, 2 saloons, a proper hotel, a bank, even a newspaper office. Miners crowded the streets, fresh from the hills with silver dust in their pockets and thirst in their throats. Caleb helped Sarah down from her horse. Her legs trembled from the ride. She'd never ridden that far that fast. Her whole body ached, but her spirit soared. "Judge's office is this way," Caleb said, taking her hand. His touch sent warmth through her entire body. She squeezed back, holding tight. They found Judge Whitmore in a small office above the general store. He was ancient 70, if he was a day, with white whiskers stained yellow from tobacco. He looked up from his newspaper when they entered. "Help you folks." "We need to get married," Caleb said. "Today. Now." The judge's eyes narrowed, studying them. "How old are you, girl?" 17, Sarah said. 18 in 2 months. "You got your father's permission?" "No, sir." "Then I can't marry you. Wyoming law says 17 needs parental consent." Sarah's heart dropped. She looked at Caleb in panic. "What if we said she was 18? Caleb asked quietly. The judge set down his paper. "What if you did? Would you ask for proof?" A long silence. The judge studied Sarah's face, then Caleb's. "You running from something, son?" "No, sir. Running toward something." "Her father gonna come after you with a shotgun?" "Probably a Bible," Sarah said. "He's a preacher." The judge laughed, a dry, crackling sound. "Preacher's daughter. Should have known. Let me guess he picked out some dried-up church elder for you to marry, and you're choosing this strapping young fellow instead. Yes, sir. And you. The judge turned to Caleb. You understand, if her daddy presses charges, I could go to jail for marrying minors without consent. I understand. You got a job, way to support a wife. Ranch work. I'm strong. I'll find work. You love her. Caleb's hand tightened on Sarah's. Yes, sir, I do. The judge looked at Sarah. And you? This what you want? Not being forced. This is the first thing I've ever wanted in my entire life, Sarah said, voice steady. The old man sighed and pulled out a worn ledger. All right, we'll say you're 18. If anyone asks, I'll say I took you at your word and you looked of age. But understand, your father finds out you lied, there could be consequences. I'll handle my father, Sarah said. Lord help you, child. The judge dipped his pen in ink. Names, Caleb Stone. Sarah Elizabeth Hartwell. He wrote slowly, hand shaking with age. Any witnesses? We don't have any, Caleb said. Need two. The judge hollered toward the door. Martha, get in here and bring Wilson from the store. An old woman shuffled in, followed by a balding shopkeeper. These two need witnesses, the judge said. You up for it? What's the hurry? Martha asked, eyeing Sarah's waist suspiciously. I'm not pregnant, Sarah said, cheeks burning. I want to marry him. Martha's expression softened. Well, at least you're honest about it. Sure, I'll witness. Wilson nodded. Me too. The ceremony took 3 minutes. The judge read from a book so old the pages were yellow. Caleb spoke his vows in a clear, strong voice. Sarah's voice shook, but she got through them. Do you have a ring? The judge asked. No, sir, Caleb said. Hold on. Martha disappeared and returned with a thin gold band. My daughter's. She died in childbirth 5 years ago. Never got to wear it. You can have it. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I can't. Take it. She'd want it to go to someone who chose love over duty. Martha pressed the ring into Caleb's palm. He slipped it onto Sarah's finger. It was slightly too big, but Sarah curled her hand into a fist to keep it on. By the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, the judge said, I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss your bride. Caleb cupped Sarah's face in his huge hands and kissed her gently, nothing like the desperate kisses of the night before. This was tender, reverent, a promise sealed before witnesses and God. When they broke apart, Martha was crying. Wilson was grinning. The judge was already writing out the marriage certificate. That'll be $5, he said, handing Caleb the paper. Caleb counted out coins from his pocket, probably his last money. You folks need a place to stay, Martha asked. I run the boarding house down the street. First night's on me, wedding present. Thank you, Sarah said. That's very kind. They walked to the boarding house in a daze. Sarah kept looking at the ring on her finger. She was married, Mrs. Caleb Stone, a wife. Martha showed them to a small room on the second floor. A bed, a washstand, a window overlooking the street. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. I'll bring up some lunch, Martha said. You two must be starving after that ride. Dinner's at 6 in the dining room, but if you'd rather take it up here, I understand. She winked and closed the door behind her. Sarah stood in the center of the room, suddenly shy. They were alone. Married. Expected to Sarah. Caleb's voice was gentle. Come here. She turned. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking at her with such tenderness it made her chest ache. Are you scared? He asked. A little. We don't have to. I mean, we're married now. Legal. But if you need time. I don't need time. She crossed to him, standing between his knees. I don't know what to do. Neither do I. She blinked. What? I've never. He looked away, color rising in his cheeks. I've never been with a woman. Not like this. But I thought you worked cattle drives. The men talked about saloon girls. I never went with them. Couldn't afford it most times, but also. He met her eyes. I wanted it to mean something. Wanted to wait for someone who mattered. Sarah's heart swelled. I matter. You're the only thing that's ever mattered. She cupped his face and kissed him, slow and sweet tasting this new reality. She was safe. She was free. She was his. Caleb's arms came around her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened. His hands trembled against her back. She could feel his heart hammering against her chest. Sarah, he breathed against her lips. Tell me if you want me to stop. Don't stop. Don't ever stop. He stood, lifting her. She weighed nothing to him, and laid her on the bed. The afternoon sun poured through the window, painting everything gold. He looked down at her, his eyes dark with want, but also something deeper. Wonder, gratitude. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making you happy, he said. You already have. What happened next was awkward and tender and painful and beautiful all at once. Caleb was gentle, constantly asking if she was all right. Sarah clung to him, tears streaming down her face, not from pain, but from the overwhelming rush of feeling everything at once. Freedom, love, belonging. When it was over, they lay tangled together, breathing hard. Caleb stroked her hair, murmuring words against her temple. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you too, Sarah whispered. I've loved you since the day you looked at me like I was human. You're more than human. You're... He kissed her forehead. You're everything. They dozed in the afternoon heat, wrapped in each other. Sarah had never felt so safe, so completely herself. A knock at the door woke them. Martha's voice called through the wood. Brought you lunch, dears. I'll leave it outside. Sarah sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. Her body ached in new places. Her hair was a tangled mess. She looked at Caleb and started laughing. What? He asked, smiling. We did it. We actually did it. Having regrets already, Mrs. Stone, Mrs. Stone. The name sent shivers through her. Not a single one. They ate lunch in bed, bread, cheese, cold chicken, apples. Everything tasted better than anything Sarah had ever eaten. Or maybe it was just that for the first time in her life, she was eating something she'd chosen. What do we do now? She asked, licking butter from her fingers. Caleb's expression grew serious. We need to figure that out. I've got maybe $20 left. Need to find work fast. Ranch work, probably there's a big spread north of here, Circle T Ranch. I can ask there. What about Cedar Ridge? What about... She couldn't finish. What about Father? He'll come looking, Caleb said quietly. We need to be ready for that. Will he try to take me back? He'll try. But you're my wife now. Legally. He can't force you to leave me. He'll hate you. He already hates me. Sarah set down her plate. I need to write him. Explain. You left him a letter. I need to explain more. He needs to understand this isn't your fault. That I chose this. Caleb pulled her close. He'll blame me anyway. Fathers always do. They spent the rest of the day in that little room, talking about everything and nothing. Sarah told him about her mother, the few memories she had, the stories her father told before he stopped talking about her altogether. Caleb told her about his parents, his father who drank himself to death, his mother who worked herself into an early grave trying to hold the family together. I had 2 sisters, he said. Both died of scarlet fever when I was 12. After that, Ma just gave up. She was gone within a year. I was 13 when I started working ranches. Been on my own ever since. You're not on your own anymore, Sarah said. No, I'm not. That evening they went down to dinner. The boarding house dining room was full of miners and gamblers and traveling salesmen. Everyone stared when they entered. Caleb was hard to miss, and Sarah looked exactly like what she was, a girl who'd spent the day in bed with her new husband. Martha seated them at a corner table and brought heaping plates of beef stew and cornbread. "How are you two lovebirds doing?" she asked with a knowing smile. "Very well, thank you," Sarah said, blushing. An old miner at the next table leaned over. "Just married." "This morning," Caleb said. "I remember my wedding day, 40 years ago now. Wife passed last winter." The old man's eyes were distant. "Enjoy every moment, son. Time goes faster than you think." "I will, sir." After dinner, they walked through Silverton as the sun set. The town was alive with noise piano music from the saloon's miners singing dogs barking. So different from Cedar Ridge's quiet streets and judgmental stares. "Do you miss it?" Caleb asked. "Home." Sarah thought about it. "I miss the church organ. I miss some of the ladies who were kind to me. But I don't miss being someone's possession." "You're still someone's possession. You're mine now." She stopped walking and looked up at him. "Am I your possession?" "No." He took her hands. "That came out wrong. You're my wife, Sarah. My partner, my equal, not my property." "The law says otherwise." "The law's wrong." They walked back to the boarding house holding hands. In their room they made love again, less awkward this time, more confident. Sarah discovered she liked the weight of him, the way his breath hitched when she touched certain places, the way he said her name like a prayer. Afterward, lying in the dark, she asked, "What if we have a baby?" Caleb's hand stilled on her hip. "Would you want that?" "I don't know. I'm 17. I've never even held a baby." "We'll figure it out. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together." Sarah rolled over to face him. "Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't ever tell me what to do. Won't ever control me the way Father controlled Mother." "I promise." "Sarah, I want you to be happy. That's all I want. If that means giving you space, letting you make choices, supporting whatever you decide, then that's what I'll do. Even if my choices are wrong, even then, we'll make mistakes together." She kissed him, tasting salt and sweat and something deeper. Trust, love, freedom. They spent 3 more days in Silverton, hiding in their perfect little room. Martha brought meals up, never asking questions. They made love and talked and dreamed about the future. Caleb would find ranch work. Sarah would what? She had no skills except playing the organ and reciting scripture. "I could teach you to read better," Caleb said. "To write. You're smart, Sarah. You could be a schoolteacher someday." A schoolteacher. The word tasted strange but exciting. Father always said women should teach only in Sunday school. "Your father's not here." But that was the problem. Eventually, they'd have to face him. On the 4th morning, Caleb rode out to the Circle T ranch to ask about work. Sarah waited in the boarding house, too nervous to eat. What if they didn't hire him? What if they had no money for the room? What if he returned at noon, grinning? "I got the job, $30 a month plus a cabin on the ranch." Sarah threw her arms around him. "That's wonderful." "There's one catch. The foreman wants to meet you first. Make sure you're—" He hesitated. "Make sure I'm really your wife and not some girl you kidnapped." Something like that. They rode out to Circle T that afternoon. The ranch was enormous, thousands of acres of grassland stretching to the mountains. Cattle dotted the hills like brown rocks. The main house was a sprawling 2-story structure, and behind it were several cabins for the ranch hands. The foreman, a grizzled man named Tom Morrison, met them at the barn. He looked Sarah up and down with shrewd eyes. "This the wife?" "Yes, sir," Caleb said. "Sarah Stone." "How old are you, girl?" Sarah lifted her chin. 18, sir." "You look younger." "I'm small for my age." Morrison grunted. "You a decent cook?" Yes, sir. I can cook." "Good. Stone here tells me he's good with horses. That true?" "Yes, sir," Caleb said. "I can break them, train them, whatever you need. We've got a string of green colts that need work. You can start tomorrow. Cabin's the one at the end, small, but it's got a stove and a bed. Outhouse out back. You share the well with the other hands. Any problems, you come to me. Understood. Understood, sir. One more thing. Morrison's eyes hardened. I don't tolerate drinking, fighting, or laziness. You show up drunk, you're fired. You cause trouble with the other men, you're fired. You don't pull your weight, you're fired. Clear. Clear, sir? Good. Get settled. Work starts at dawn. The cabin was rough, one room with a pot-belly stove, a narrow bed, a table, 2 chairs. The floorboards were warped. The window had a crack, but it was theirs. Sarah stood in the doorway looking at this tiny space that would be her home. No church, no father. No rules except the ones they made. It's perfect, she said. Caleb laughed. It's a shack. It's our shack. They spent the rest of the day making the cabin livable. Caleb fixed the broken window. Sarah swept the floor and scrubbed the table. They borrowed blankets from the ranch house and made the bed. By evening, it almost looked like a home. That night, lying in their narrow bed, Sarah asked, "Do you think Father's figured out where we are?" Probably. Silverton's the closest town with a judge. Will he come? Eventually. What will we do? Caleb pulled her closer. We'll face him together. But Sarah, he can't take you back. You're legally married. 18 or not, you're my wife. The law's on our side. The law's never been on my side before. It is now. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that her father wasn't done with them. That this peace was temporary. That somewhere Reverend Samuel Hartwell was planning his next move. She was right. 5 days later, Sarah was hanging laundry behind the cabin when she heard horses. She turned and froze. Her father sat astride a black gelding flanked by 2 men she recognized from Cedar Ridge, Deacon Miller and Deacon Price. Her father's face was stone, his eyes burning with cold fury. Sarah Elizabeth. His voice was flat, dead, worse than anger. Father. Her hands shook on the wet shirt she was holding. Get your things. You're coming home. No. This isn't a request. You're 17 years old. You're under my authority. This... He gestured at the cabin with disgust. This abomination of a marriage is invalid. You were underage. The judge will annul it. I won't go back. You will. Or I'll have this man arrested for kidnapping and corruption of a minor. He didn't kidnap me, I went willingly. You're a child. You don't know what you did. Caleb emerged from the barn, saw the situation, and strode over. The 2 deacons moved their horses to block him, but Caleb was too big to intimidate. Reverend Hartwell, he said calmly. We're legally married. I have the certificate. A certificate obtained through deception. My daughter lied about her age. The judge accepted her word. Then the judge will answer for his crime as well. Her father's voice was ice. Sarah, get on this horse now. No. Sarah stepped closer to Caleb. I'm not going back. I'm his wife. I love him. You think this is love? Her father's voice finally cracked with emotion. You think this drifter, this killer, this man who seduced my daughter is love. He's using you, Sarah. He saw an innocent girl and he took advantage. He didn't seduce me. I chose him. You don't get to choose. You're 17. You're a child playing house with a man who will ruin you and leave you the moment something better comes along. That's not true, Caleb said, his voice hard. I love Sarah. I married her. I'll take care of her for the rest of my life. Your promises mean nothing. You have no family, no reputation, no future. What can you possibly offer my daughter? Freedom, Sarah said. He offers me freedom to be myself, to make my own choices, to live without fear of being struck for asking questions. Her father's face paled. I struck you once, and I apologized. You apologized to God, not to me. Sarah, Her father's voice broke. Please, come home. We'll forget this happened. We'll say you were confused, overwhelmed. The minister from Denver is still willing. I don't want the minister from Denver. I want my husband. This man is not your husband. This mockery of a marriage is legal. Tom Morrison's voice cut through the argument. The foreman had approached rifle resting casually in the crook of his arm. Is there a problem here, Stone? This is my wife's father, sir. He's trying to take her back. Is that so? Morrison turned to Reverend Hartwell. You got legal grounds for that. She's 17. She lied about her age to the judge. Judge Whitmore. Yes. Morrison's mouth curved. Old Whitmore's been marrying runaway couples for 30 years. He knows exactly what he's doing. If he married them, he did it with his eyes open. You want to contest it, take it up with him. But you're not taking anyone off my ranch without their consent. This is my daughter. This is a married woman living in employee housing on private property. You're trespassing. Leave now or I'll have the sheriff remove you. Reverend Hartwell stared at Morrison, then at Sarah, then at Caleb, his face twisted with pain and rage. You've destroyed yourself, he said to Sarah. You've thrown away your soul for this animal. When he leaves you pregnant and alone, don't come crying back to me. I won't, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. Because he won't leave me. He's not like you. Her father flinched, as if she'd struck him. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Hurt, regret, maybe even love. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by cold righteousness. Then you're no daughter of mine. The girl I raised died the day she ran away with this man. I'll pray for your damned soul, but I'll never speak to you again. He wheeled his horse around and rode off, the two deacons following. Sarah watched them disappear down the road, her whole body shaking. Caleb's arms came around her. It's over. He's gone. He disowned me. Her voice was hollow. He actually disowned me. I'm sorry. I'm not. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. I'm not sorry. I'd choose you 1,000 times over. Even knowing it would cost you your father. Especially knowing that. But that night, lying in bed, Sarah cried. Cried for the father she'd lost. Cried for the childhood that was gone forever. Cried for the impossible dream that maybe somehow he could have accepted her choice. Caleb held her, saying nothing. Sometimes there were no words that could help. The next morning, Sarah woke determined. She was done being a victim. Done crying over a man who valued control over love. She was Caleb Stone's wife. She had a home, a husband, a future. She would build a life worth living. Over the next weeks, Sarah threw herself into making the cabin a home. She sewed curtains from fabric scraps, planted a small garden, learned to cook on the temperamental stove. The other ranch wives, women who'd also chosen hard lives with men they loved, welcomed her cautiously at first, then warmly when they saw she wasn't afraid of work. Caleb worked from dawn to dusk, breaking horses and mending fences. He came home exhausted, but always with a smile for her. They were poor. $30 a month didn't go far, but they were happy. One evening, 2 months after they'd married, Sarah realized she'd missed her monthly courses. Twice now. She stood at the stove, stirring stew, her hand resting on her flat belly. A baby. Maybe. Probably. She should be terrified. She was 18 now, barely, and pregnant. But instead, she felt a strange calm. A rightness. When Caleb came home that night, she told him. He stared at her face, blank with shock. Then slowly a smile spread across his features. A baby. Maybe. I'm not certain yet, but... He picked her up and spun her around, laughing. We're having a baby. Caleb put me down. I'm dizzy. He set her down gently, his hands on her belly. Does it hurt? Are you sick? I'm fine. A little tired. A little nauseous in the mornings. You need to rest more. I'll talk to Tom, see if one of the other wives can help with... Caleb. She took his face in her hands. I'm pregnant, not dying. Women have babies every day. Not my wife, not my baby. His fierce protectiveness made her laugh. I love you. I love you too, both of you. That night, they lay in bed, Caleb's hand on her belly, talking about names and futures and dreams. Sarah felt more certain than ever that she'd made the right choice. She'd chosen love over duty, freedom over safety, life over existence. And she would never, ever regret it. Winter came early that year, sweeping down from the mountains with teeth of ice. Sarah's belly swelled as the temperatures dropped. By November, she was showing enough that the ranch wives clucked their tongues and counted backwards on their fingers, whispering when they thought she couldn't hear. Married in June, baby due in March. That's 9 months. They must have, hush, she's just small. Baby's probably right on time. But Sarah knew the truth. She'd gotten pregnant before the wedding, probably that very first night in Caleb's room back in Cedar Ridge. The night everything changed. She didn't care what they whispered. Let them count. Let them judge. She was carrying Caleb's child, and that made her prouder than any righteousness her father ever preached. The morning sickness faded by October, replaced by a ravenous hunger that shocked her. She who'd lived on scraps and duty now ate like a ranch hand, eggs and bacon, and bread slathered with butter. Caleb watched her with amused wonder. "Where are you putting it all?" he asked one morning as she finished her third helping of porridge. "I'm eating for 2. "You're eating for 5. She threw a biscuit at him. He caught it and took a bite, grinning. But the joy was shadowed by worry. Money was tight. $30 a month barely covered food and necessities. They needed to save for the baby diapers, blankets, a cradle. Sarah tried to stretch every penny, but prices were high in ranch country, where everything had to be hauled from town. "I can take extra work," Caleb said one night, lying in bed with his hand on her belly. Morrison mentioned they need help with the winter cattle drive. "It pays an extra $20, but I'd be gone 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Sarah's voice came out smaller than she intended. "I know. But Sarah, we need the money. Doctor visits, medicine. What if there's complications?" "I'll be fine." "You don't know that. Women die in childbirth all the time." The words hung between them, heavy with the ghost of Sarah's mother. "I'm not my mother," Sarah said firmly. "I'm young and healthy. The midwife says everything looks good." "The midwife's not a doctor." "Doctors cost money we don't have." Caleb was quiet for a long moment. "What if something goes wrong while I'm gone?" "Then the other wives will help me. Caleb, we need that money. You should go." "I don't want to leave you." "I know, but we do what we have to do." He left the first week of December, riding out with 6 other men and 500 head of cattle bound for the railroad 50 miles north. Sarah stood in the cabin doorway wrapped in blankets against the bitter wind, watching until he disappeared over the ridge. She'd never felt so alone. The first week passed slowly. Sarah kept busy sewing baby clothes from old flour sacks, preserving vegetables, helping the other wives with their work. But at night, the cabin felt enormous and empty. She lay in bed, hand on her belly, talking to the baby. "Your father will be back soon. He's working so hard for us. You're going to love him. He's gentle and strong, and he makes me laugh." The baby kicked a flutter like butterfly wings. Sarah smiled in the darkness. The second week brought the first real snow. It fell thick and fast, blanketing the ranch in white. The other wives invited Sarah to stay in the main house, warmer, safer, but she refused. This was her home. She wouldn't abandon it. On the 10th night, she woke to cramping, sharp stabbing pains low in her belly. She gasped and curled into a ball, terror flooding through her. No, not yet. It was too early. She was only 6 months along. The pain eased after a few minutes. She lay very still, breathing carefully, willing the baby to stay put. After an hour with no more cramps, she finally fell back asleep. But in the morning, she found blood on her nightgown. Not much, just a few spots, but enough to send ice through her veins. She dressed quickly and walked to the main house through knee-deep snow. Mrs. Morrison, Tom's wife. A stout woman with kind eyes took one look at Sarah's face and pulled her inside. "What's wrong?" "I'm bleeding. Not much, but—" Sarah's voice broke. "I can't lose this baby." Mrs. Morrison settled her in a chair by the fire. "How much blood?" "Just spots." "Any cramping?" "Last night, but it stopped." "Is the baby moving?" Sarah pressed her hand to her belly. After a moment, a gentle kick. "Yes." "Then you're probably fine. Some women spot during pregnancy, but you need to rest. No heavy lifting, no long walks. You stay in bed until it stops." "I can't. I have chores." "The chores can wait. That baby's more important." Mrs. Morrison's voice was firm. "You'll stay here in the main house until your husband gets back. I'll send one of the boys to fetch your things." Sarah wanted to argue, but another cramp seized her belly. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. They put her in a small bedroom on the first floor. For 3 days, Sarah lay in bed, terrified to move. The bleeding stopped, but the fear remained. What if she lost the baby? What if Caleb came home to find she couldn't finish the thought? On the 4th day, a rider came from the north. The cattle drive had hit a blizzard. 2 men were dead, frozen in their bedrolls. The others were holed up in a line shack waiting for the weather to break. "What about Caleb?" Sarah asked, gripping the rider's arm. "Caleb Stone, is he alive?" "Don't know, ma'am. I left before they all made it to shelter. But he's big and strong. If anyone survives, it'll be him." If anyone survives. Sarah returned to bed and prayed for the first time since leaving Cedar Ridge. Not the rote prayers her father forced on her, but real desperate pleas. "Please, God, please bring him home. I'll do anything. Just bring him home." 5 more days crawled by. No word, no news. Sarah lay in bed, hand on her belly, telling the baby stories about its father. "He's coming back. He promised he'd never leave us. He's strong and smart, and he'll find his way home." But doubt crept in during the dark hours. What if he was frozen somewhere on the prairie? What if she'd sent him to his death for $20? On the 6th day, horses thundered into the ranch yard. Sarah heard shouting men's voices. She threw on a robe and ran to the window. There, climbing down from his horse, was Caleb. Alive. Whole. She was out the door before Mrs. Morrison could stop her running barefoot through the snow in her nightgown. Caleb saw her, and his face transformed. "Sarah." She crashed into him, sobbing. His arms came around her, lifting her off her feet. "You're alive. Oh God, you're alive." "I'm fine. I'm here." He carried her back inside, setting her down by the fire. "What are you doing out of bed? You'll catch your death." "I was so scared. They said 2 men died, and I thought—" "Shh, I'm fine. Not even frostbite." He cupped her face. "But what about you? Mrs. Morrison said you were bleeding." "It stopped. The baby's fine. We're both fine." He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. She felt him shaking. "I shouldn't have left you," he said. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You came back. That's all that matters." That night back in their own cabin, Caleb wouldn't let her out of his sight. He made dinner, stoked the fire, helped her into bed. When she protested that she could do these things herself, he just shook his head. "Humor me. I spent 2 weeks thinking I might never see you again." "What happened out there?" He was quiet for a long moment. "The blizzard hit the 2nd week. We were moving the herd through a canyon when the wind just exploded. Couldn't see 2 feet ahead. We got the cattle into a sheltered valley and made for a line shack we knew was nearby. But Jackson and Peters didn't make it. We found them the next morning, frozen solid." Sarah's hand found his. "I'm sorry." Peters had a wife, 3 kids. Jackson was engaged to be married next spring. Caleb's voice was hollow. "They died for $20. They died doing their jobs. Is that supposed to make it better?" "No." But Caleb, you can't blame yourself. You didn't control the weather. I keep thinking that could have been me. You could be a widow right now. The baby could grow up without a father. But you're not dead. You're here, and you're never taking another winter cattle drive. I don't care how much money they offer. He laughed shakily. Agreed. The $20 helped, but it wasn't enough. As Sarah's belly grew larger, so did their expenses. They needed more firewood, more food, a doctor's visit that cost $5 precious. By February, they were down to their last $3, and Caleb's monthly pay wasn't due for another week. We'll manage, Sarah said, but even she could hear the doubt in her voice. That night, Tom Morrison knocked on their door. He stood in the doorway, hat in his hands, looking uncomfortable. Stone, Mrs. Stone, can I come in? Of course, sir, Caleb said. Morrison entered, glancing around the small cabin. His eyes lingered on Sarah's swollen belly, then moved to the near-empty shelves. I'll get straight to it. I know money's tight for you two, and with the baby coming... He pulled an envelope from his pocket. This is 3 months advance pay, $90. It's yours. Caleb stared at the envelope. Sir, I can't accept... It's not charity. It's an advance. You'll work it off over the next year. But you need it now, and I won't have a baby born on my ranch without proper supplies. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. That's very kind. My wife had a hard time with our first. We were young and broke and scared. Someone helped us then. I'm paying it forward. He set the envelope on the table. Get what you need. And Mrs. Stone, Doc Miller's in town next week. You go see him. That's an order. After he left, Sarah and Caleb stared at the envelope like it might disappear. $90, Sarah whispered. We can buy everything. Diapers, blankets, a cradle, and food. Real food, meat and vegetables, and... She laughed, giddy with relief. We're going to be all right. Yeah. Caleb pulled her close. We are. The next week they rode to town. Sarah saw Doc Miller, who examined her and declared everything looked healthy. They bought supplies, fabric for diapers, yarn for blankets, a small wooden cradle that Caleb carried home strapped to his saddle. They even splurged on a tin of peaches, a luxury Sarah hadn't tasted since leaving Cedar Ridge. In town, Sarah noticed people staring, whispering. She was obviously pregnant, obviously young, obviously not from around here. She lifted her chin and stared right back. Let them look, Caleb said, taking her hand. You're beautiful, and you're mine. But as they were leaving the general store, a woman's voice stopped them. Sarah Hartwell. Sarah turned. A woman in her 30s stood there, familiar but changed. It took Sarah a moment to place her. Mrs. Henderson. The older woman, not as old as Sarah remembered, hurried over. She looked Sarah up and down, taking in the wedding ring, the swollen belly, the simple dress. Is it true what they say in Cedar Ridge that you ran off with the hired hand? His name is Caleb Stone. He's my husband. Oh, child, Mrs. Henderson's voice was thick with pity. What have you done to yourself? I've chosen my own life. Your father's heartbroken. He hasn't been the same since you left. Sunday sermons about prodigal children and lost sheep. He prays for you every night. Guilt twisted in Sarah's stomach, but she pushed it down. I wrote him letters. He never responded. He burned them, said they were poison. Then he's made his choice just like I made mine. Mrs. Henderson glanced at Caleb, then back to Sarah. Are you happy truly? Sarah looked up at her husband, this giant, gentle man who'd given her freedom and love and a future worth living. Then she pressed her hand to her belly, feeling their child move inside her. I've never been happier. Then I'm glad. Mrs. Henderson's eyes filled with tears. Your mother would be proud. She always wanted more for you than your father's cage. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. What? Your mother. She fought your father constantly about how he was raising you, wanted you to have choices, freedom. They argued about it right up until Mrs. Henderson stopped. You didn't know. Know what Father said she died in sin, that she questioned her place and God took her as punishment. Is that what he told you? Mrs. Henderson's face twisted. Oh, that man, that stubborn, prideful man. Tell me, Sarah said urgently. Tell me the truth. Mrs. Henderson looked around, making sure no one else could hear. Your mother didn't die because she questioned God. She died because she tried to run away. She was pregnant with you 8 months along, and she tried to leave your father. Took a wagon in the middle of winter, headed for her family in Boston. The wagon overturned on a frozen road. She went into labor early. By the time they found her and got her back to Cedar Ridge, it was too late. She bled to death bringing you into the world, but her last words were, let her choose. Don't cage her like he caged me. Sarah couldn't breathe. The world tilted sideways. My mother tried to leave him. Your father never forgave her for it, or himself. He blamed himself for driving her away, but he couldn't admit it. So he rewrote the story, made her death about sin instead of freedom, and he was determined not to let you make the same choice. But I did make the same choice. Yes. Mrs. Henderson smiled sadly. You're your mother's daughter, and maybe that's what your father really can't forgive. Caleb's hand tightened on Sarah's shoulder. We should go. Sarah nodded numbly. They said goodbye to Mrs. Henderson and rode back to the ranch in silence. That night, lying in bed, Sarah finally spoke. My mother tried to choose freedom, and it killed her. I chose freedom, and you're alive, Caleb said firmly. You're safe. You're loved. You're not your mother, Sarah. But what if Father's right? What if choosing myself over duty is a sin? Then it's a sin I'll gladly commit with you. He rolled onto his side facing her. Sarah, your mother's tragedy wasn't that she chose freedom. It was that she chose it too late. She waited until she was desperate and took a risk that killed her. You chose early. You chose smart. You chose me, and I'll spend every day of my life making sure you never regret it. I don't regret it. Then stop letting your father's voice in your head. He doesn't get to live there anymore. Sarah pressed her forehead to his chest. I love you. I love you too. February melted into March. Sarah's belly grew enormous. She couldn't see her own feet, could barely walk without waddling. The baby kicked constantly, especially at night when she was trying to sleep. This child's going to be a rancher, Caleb said, feeling another powerful kick. Already got strong legs. This child's going to kill me, Sarah groaned. My back aches, my feet are swollen, and I have to pee every 5 minutes. Want me to carry you to the outhouse? I'm pregnant, not an invalid. But she let him help her up anyway, and when another kick made her gasp, he was there, steadying her. The other ranch wives started taking bets on when the baby would arrive. Mrs. Morrison said first babies always came late. Another woman swore by moon phases and predicted March 23rd. Sarah just wanted it over with. On March 18th, she woke at dawn with a strange ache in her lower back. Nothing serious, just uncomfortable. She got up slowly, carefully, and started making breakfast. Caleb was already gone out working with the horses. Sarah fried eggs and bacon, the backache growing steadily worse. By mid-morning, it had wrapped around to her belly, not sharp, just a persistent squeezing sensation. She sat down, trying to ease the discomfort. The squeezing came again, stronger this time. Oh no. Another squeeze, lasting maybe 30 seconds. Sarah counted the minutes until the next one. 15 minutes. Another one. 12 minutes. She stood carefully and walked to the door. Outside, ranch hands were working in the corral. She recognized young Billy, one of the stable boys. Billy, she called. Get my husband? Now. The boy took one look at her face and ran. Caleb arrived within minutes, sliding off his horse before it fully stopped. What's wrong? The baby's coming. His face went white. Now. But you're not due for another week. Tell that to the baby. Another contraction hit. Sarah gasped, gripping the doorframe. Caleb caught her as her knees buckled. I've got you. I've got you. He lifted her like she weighed nothing and carried her inside, laying her on the bed. I'm getting Mrs. Morrison. Don't leave me. I'll be 2 minutes, I promise. He was back in 90 seconds with Mrs. Morrison and 2 other ranch wives. They shooed him out of the cabin. But she needs me, Caleb protested. She needs us right now, Mrs. Morrison said firmly. You go boil water and tear up some clean rags. We'll call you when it's time. The door shut in his face. Inside the cabin, Sarah whimpered as another contraction seized her. They were coming faster now, 10 minutes apart, then 8, then 5. How long is this supposed to take? She gasped. First babies could be hours, could be a day. Mrs. Morrison pressed a cool cloth to Sarah's forehead. You're doing fine, honey. Just breathe through it. But as the hours crawled by, Sarah wasn't sure she was doing fine. The pain was worse than anything she'd imagined, worse than a broken bone, worse than a knife wound. It was her body tearing itself apart to bring forth life. She screamed, she cried, she begged God to make it stop. Outside the cabin, Caleb paced like a caged animal. Every scream from inside ripped through him. He'd killed men with less guilt than he felt listening to Sarah's pain. It's normal, Tom Morrison said, standing with him. Women are stronger than we give them credit for. She's so small. What if... Don't go there. She's young and healthy. She'll be fine. But as the sun set and Sarah's screams grew hoarse, Caleb wasn't sure he believed it. Inside, Mrs. Morrison checked Sarah's progress and frowned. Babies turned wrong, shoulders presenting first instead of the head. Sarah sobbed. What does that mean? Means we need to turn it. This is going to hurt, honey. I'm sorry. What followed was agony beyond description. Mrs. Morrison's hands inside her pushing, manipulating, turning the baby while Sarah screamed until her throat was raw. She bit down on a leather strap to keep from breaking her teeth. There, Mrs. Morrison said. Got it. Heads down now. You can push on the next contraction. I can't do this. Yes, you can. Your mama did it. You're stronger than you think. Sarah thought of her mother bleeding to death in a frozen wagon, giving her last breath to bring Sarah into the world. Thought of her final words. Let her choose. She chose this. Chose Caleb. Chose freedom. Chose life. On the next contraction, she pushed. And pushed. And pushed. For an hour she pushed until she thought her body would split in 2. Then just when she was ready to give up, Mrs. Morrison shouted, The head! I see the head! One more push, Sarah! Give me one more! Sarah gathered every ounce of strength left in her body and pushed with everything she had. A baby's cry filled the cabin. Sarah collapsed back on the bed, sobbing with relief and exhaustion. Mrs. Morrison was laughing, holding a squalling, red-faced infant. It's a boy! You have a son! The door burst open. Caleb stood there wild-eyed. Is she? She's fine. They're both fine. Mrs. Morrison wrapped the baby in a blanket and held him out. Come meet your son. Caleb crossed the room in 2 steps. He looked at Sarah first, pale, sweaty, exhausted, but smiling, then down at the tiny bundle in Mrs. Morrison's arms. Oh, he breathed. Oh, Sarah. Look at him. She held out her arms. Caleb carefully, reverently placed the baby in them. Sarah looked down at her son, this tiny, perfect creature she'd carried for 9 months. He had Caleb's nose and her mother's chin. His eyes were squeezed shut, his little fists waving. Hello, Samuel, she whispered. Welcome to the world. Samuel, Caleb asked. After my father. Despite everything, he's still my father. And maybe someday, he'll meet his grandson. Caleb kissed her forehead. Samuel Stone. I like it. The ranch wives cleaned up and left them alone. Caleb climbed onto the bed beside Sarah, careful not to jostle her or the baby. They sat together in the lamplight, marveling at what they'd created. "We made a person," Sarah said, laughing through fresh tears. "We actually made a person." "You made a person. I just helped." "You did more than help." Samuel yawned, his tiny mouth opening wide. Then he settled against Sarah's chest, already falling asleep. "I'm terrified," Sarah admitted. "What if I don't know how to be a mother? What if I mess this up?" "Then we'll mess it up together," Caleb said. "And we'll figure it out, just like we figured out everything else." "He's so small, so fragile." "He's got your strength. He'll be fine." Sarah looked at her husband, this man who'd given her everything, and then at their son, this new life born from love and choice and freedom. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." "Yeah." Caleb's voice was thick with emotion. "We did." That night, as Sarah drifted off to sleep with Samuel in her arms, she thought about her mother's last words. Let her choose. She'd chosen. And maybe that's what her mother really wanted all along. Not perfection, not righteousness. Just the freedom to choose her own path. Sarah had chosen Caleb, chosen love, chosen this hard, beautiful, terrifying life. And she would choose it again every single day. Samuel Stone came into the world screaming and didn't stop for 3 months. He cried when he was hungry, cried when he was wet, cried when he was tired, and sometimes cried for no reason Sarah could determine. She walked the floor at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, bouncing him and singing lullabies her mother must have sung to her, though she had no memory of them. Caleb tried to help, but his huge hands made the tiny baby look even more fragile. He was terrified of breaking something. "You won't hurt him," Sarah said for the 100th time, placing Samuel in his arms. "Just support his head." Caleb held his son like he was made of spun glass. Samuel looked up at his father with unfocused blue eyes and promptly spit up all over Caleb's shirt. "He hates me," Caleb said mournfully. "He's a baby. He doesn't hate anyone. He just has terrible aim." But despite the exhaustion, despite the crying and the spit up and the endless diapers, Sarah had never been happier. She would stand over Samuel's cradle watching him sleep, marveling that something so perfect had come from her body. From her choice. From her love. The ranch wives helped when they could, bringing casseroles and offering advice. Mrs. Morrison showed Sarah how to wrap Samuel tight so he'd sleep longer. Another woman taught her a song that soothed the worst crying fits. They formed a circle around her, these tough frontier women who'd all survived their own first babies, and Sarah understood she wasn't alone anymore. One afternoon in late April, Sarah was nursing Samuel on the cabin's front step when a rider approached. She didn't recognize him at first, a young man maybe 20, with sandy hair and nervous eyes. He dismounted and removed his hat. "Mrs. Stone." "Yes." "My name's David Henderson. I'm Mrs. Henderson's nephew from Cedar Ridge. I have a letter for you." Sarah's heart stopped. "From my father." "No, ma'am. From Mrs. Henderson. But it's about your father." He handed her an envelope. Sarah shifted Samuel to one arm and tore it open with shaking fingers. The letter was brief. "Dear Sarah, I'm writing to tell you that your father is gravely ill. He collapsed during Sunday service 3 weeks ago. Doc says it's his heart. He's been bedridden since. He's asked for you several times but always catches himself and says you're dead to him. I don't know how much time he has left. Days, maybe weeks. I thought you should know. What you do with this information is your choice. Mrs. Henderson." Sarah read it twice, then a third time. Her father was dying. The man who'd raised her, controlled her, struck her, disowned her, was dying. "Ma'am?" David Henderson shifted nervously. "Do you want to send a reply?" I need to think. Can you wait?" "Yes, ma'am." Sarah carried Samuel inside and found Caleb in the small yard behind the cabin chopping firewood. He took one look at her face and set down the axe. What's wrong? She handed him the letter. He read it, his expression hardening. I'm sorry, Sarah. I don't know what to feel. He disowned me, told me I was dead to him. But he's my father. He's the only parent I ever knew. Do you want to go see him? I don't know. Maybe. Would you come with me? Of course. But Sarah, he chose his words carefully. He might not want to see me. Might not want to see Samuel either. He might send you away. Then he sends me away. But at least I'll have tried. They left the next morning, Samuel wrapped in blankets and tucked into a sling against Sarah's chest. The ride to Cedar Ridge took most of the day. Sarah's body still ached from childbirth, and every jolt of the horse made her wince. But she pushed through the pain. They reached Cedar Ridge at dusk. The town looked exactly the same, the church steeple rising above the other buildings, the general store with its crooked sign, the dirt streets empty in the fading light. Sarah felt like she'd traveled back in time. Where does he live? Caleb asked. Behind the church, the small house. They tied their horses outside, and Sarah walked to the door on trembling legs. She knocked. Mrs. Henderson answered, eyes widening in surprise. Sarah, you came. How is he? Not good. He's sleeping now, but... She glanced at Caleb, then at the bundle against Sarah's chest. Is that my son, Samuel? Sarah's voice was steady. Can I see my father? He won't be happy about the baby, or your husband. I know, but I'm here. That's all I can offer. Mrs. Henderson stepped aside. The bedroom's at the back. Be gentle with him. He's not the man you remember. Sarah walked through the small house so familiar it hurt. The same furniture, the same cross on the wall, the same smell of candle wax and old leather. But everything felt smaller now, less intimidating. She pushed open the bedroom door. Her father lay in bed, shrunken and gray. He'd lost weight, his face gaunt and hollow. His eyes were closed, his breathing labored. Sarah barely recognized him. Father. His eyes fluttered open. For a moment he just stared at her like he wasn't sure she was real. Then his face twisted. You're not here. You're dead. I'm very much alive, Father. I told you never to come back. You're dying. I had to come. He tried to sit up, failed, fell back against the pillows. Where's your husband? The man who destroyed you? Outside, with our son. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain maybe, or curiosity. You had a child. A boy. Samuel. Named after you. Don't. His voice cracked. Don't do that. Don't try to... He stopped coughing. When he caught his breath, his eyes were wet. Why did you come? Because you're my father. Because despite everything, I still love you. You shouldn't. I failed you. Failed your mother. Failed God. Sarah sat in the chair beside his bed. Mrs. Henderson told me the truth. About Mother. How she tried to leave. Her father's face crumpled. That woman talks too much. Why did you lie to me? Why did you tell me she died in sin? Because the truth was worse. The truth was that I drove her away. I was so righteous, so certain I knew God's will for her life. I didn't listen when she begged for freedom. Didn't see her drowning in my rules. His hands clutched the blanket. She died trying to escape me. And you escaped. You're her revenge. I'm not anyone's revenge. I'm just a woman who chose her own life. And I hated you for it. Hated that you succeeded where she failed. Hated that you proved me wrong. He looked at her with ancient, tired eyes. But mostly I hated myself. For losing you both. Samuel stirred against Sarah's chest, making small mewling sounds. Her father's eyes fixed on the bundle. Can I... He stopped. Started again. Can I see him? Sarah carefully unwrapped Samuel and held him where her father could see. The baby blinked sleepily, one tiny fist waving. Her father stared at his grandson. Tears rolled down his weathered cheeks. He has your mother's chin, her eyes too. I know. Does he cry much? Constantly. You cried constantly too. Your mother walked the floor with you every night for months. I told her she was spoiling you. She told me babies need comfort more than discipline. His voice broke. She was right, about everything, and I was too proud to see it. Father, let me finish. I don't have much time. He coughed again, harder this time. When he spoke again, his voice was weaker. I loved your mother, loved her more than my own soul. But I loved my righteousness more, loved being right, loved control. And it killed her. I can't let it kill you too. It won't. I chose differently than she did. I chose early, chose smart. You chose well. That man outside the giant, does he treat you right? He treats me like a person, like an equal. He asks what I want instead of telling me what to do. Then he's a better man than I ever was. Her father reached out with a trembling hand. Sarah took it, surprised by how fragile it felt. I'm sorry, daughter, for hitting you, for trying to cage you, for putting my pride above your happiness. I'm sorry I wasn't the father you deserved. You were the father you knew how to be. That's no excuse. No, but it's the truth. They sat in silence for a long moment. Samuel fell back asleep against Sarah's chest. Her father's breathing grew more labored. Will you let me meet your husband? He asked finally. Before I die. Are you sure? I need to know the man raising my grandson. Need to see if he's worthy. He's worthy. Let me judge that myself. Sarah went to the door and called for Caleb. He entered, carefully ducking his head to fit through the doorframe. He stood at the foot of the bed, hat in his hands. Reverend Hartwell. Stone. Her father studied him with sharp eyes. You're bigger than I remembered. Yes, sir. Do you love my daughter? More than my own life? Do you provide for her? We're poor, but we manage. I work hard. She never goes hungry. Do you hit her? Never. I'd cut off my own hand first. Do you force yourself on her? Caleb's face reddened. Sir, that's between... Answer the question. No, I never force anything. She's my wife, not my property. Her father was quiet for a moment. The baby. Is it yours? Yes, sir. You got her pregnant before the wedding. We got each other pregnant, sir. She chose me as much as I chose her. Don't talk back to me, boy. With respect, sir, I'm not a boy. I'm a man, a husband, a father. And I won't apologize for loving your daughter. The room crackled with tension. Sarah held her breath. Then her father laughed, a dry, rasping sound that turned into a coughing fit. When he recovered, he was smiling. You've got spine, Stone. I'll give you that. My daughter chose well. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. I tried to stop her, tried to cage her like I caged her mother, but she's stronger than both of us. He looked at Sarah. Stay. Until the end. Please. Of course, father. They stayed. Sarah and Caleb took turns sitting with her father over the next 3 days. The ranch wives would manage without Caleb for a while, and Samuel was portable enough to bring along. During the days, Sarah's father slept mostly waking only to sip water or broth. But at night, when the pain was worst, he talked. He told her about meeting her mother in Boston. How beautiful she was, how full of life, how he'd courted her with poetry and promises of adventure out west. How excited they'd been on their wedding day. I meant to make her happy, he said one night, his voice barely a whisper. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that was the goal. Started thinking my job was to make her righteous instead, to mold her into the perfect preacher's wife, and it destroyed us both. Did she ever tell you she was unhappy? Every day, in 1,000 small ways. But I didn't listen. Thought she just needed more scripture, more prayer, more discipline. Never occurred to me that maybe what she needed was freedom. He looked at Sarah. Don't make my mistakes with your son. Let him choose his own path. I will. even if it's a path you wouldn't choose for him. Especially then. He smiled. You learned what I couldn't teach. Maybe that's its own kind of grace. On the fourth night, his breathing grew more ragged. Sarah sent for Doc Miller, but the old doctor just shook his head. Hours at most. Make your peace. Sarah sat beside her father, holding his hand. Caleb stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder. Samuel slept in a makeshift cradle Mrs. Henderson had brought over. Father, can you hear me? His eyes fluttered open. Yes. I forgive you. For everything. The control, the rules, the hitting. All of it. I forgive you. You shouldn't. I don't deserve. Forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about letting go. And I'm letting go. Tears leaked from the corners of his eyes. Thank you. And I need you to forgive me, for leaving, for hurting you, for choosing my own life over your plans. There's nothing to forgive. You did what you had to do, what you should have done. His voice was fading. Your mother would be so proud. I'm proud too. Took me too long to say it, but I am. I know, Father. I know. His breathing grew shallower, each breath a struggle. Sarah held his hand tighter, willing him to feel her love through the touch. Tell Samuel, he gasped. Tell him his grandfather was a fool who learned too late. Tell him to choose love over righteousness. Tell him. I'll tell him, I promise. Her father smiled. Then his eyes closed, and he took one last rattling breath. And then he was gone. Sarah sat there for a long moment, holding the hand of the man who'd given her life and tried to control it, and finally, at the very end, set her free. She cried not with the desperate sobs of grief, but with the quiet tears of release. Release from anger, from resentment, from the need for his approval she'd carried for so long. Caleb knelt beside her chair. I'm so sorry. Don't be. He died at peace. That's more than most people get. They buried Reverend Samuel Hartwell 3 days later in the Cedar Ridge Cemetery beside Sarah's mother. The whole town turned out not because they loved him, Sarah suspected, but because his death marked the end of an era. The old preacher who'd ruled their spiritual lives for 20 years was gone. Sarah stood at the graveside with Samuel in her arms and Caleb at her side. Mrs. Henderson read from Psalms. Several townspeople shared memories, his powerful sermons, his dedication to the church, his unbending principles. No one mentioned his cruelty, his control, his pride. But they didn't need to. Sarah remembered all of it, and she'd forgiven all of it. After the funeral, several people approached her tentatively, awkwardly, unsure how to talk to the daughter who'd become the scandal. You look well, Sarah, one woman said. Thank you, I am well. The baby's beautiful. Thank you. Your father, he talked about you sometimes, when he thought no one was listening. I think he missed you. I missed him too. It wasn't entirely true, but it also wasn't entirely false. She'd missed the idea of him, the father he could have been if he'd chosen love over control. Deacon Miller approached, last hat in his hands. Your father left a will. Everything goes to you, the house, his savings, his books. It's not much, maybe $300 total, but it's yours. $300. More money than Sarah had ever seen in her life. What about the church? She asked. The church is hiring a new minister, someone younger. From Denver, I think. Of course. The minister her father had wanted her to marry. Life continued, regardless of who died or who left. I'll think about the house, Sarah said. I don't need the money right away. Take your time. That night, Sarah and Caleb stayed in her father's house. It felt strange being back in her old room, the same narrow bed, the same cross on the wall. But she wasn't the same girl who'd slept here. That girl was gone, replaced by a woman who'd chosen her own path. Caleb fed the fire while Sarah nursed Samuel. The baby was fussy, sensing his mother's emotional state. She hummed to him, rocking slowly. What do you want to do with the house? Caleb asked. Sell it, I think. Use the money to buy land, build something of our own instead of living in ranch housing. Your own place, I like that. Not just my place, our place. Yours, mine, Samuel's. Somewhere we can grow old together. He crossed to her and kissed her forehead. Sounds perfect. Caleb, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think I'm like my father, stubborn and controlling? You're stubborn, but you're not controlling. You ask for what you want instead of demanding it. You listen when I talk instead of talking over me. You're nothing like him. But what if I become like him? What if I turn into? You won't. You know what he did wrong. You've lived through it. You'll choose differently. How can you be sure? Because you already have. You chose me. You chose freedom. You chose love. Your father never made those choices. You did. Sarah leaned against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. I love you. I love you too. They sold the house 2 weeks later to a young couple, just starting out, newly married, full of hope, probably about to have their own battles about control and freedom. Sarah hoped they figured it out faster than her parents did. The money from the sale, combined with her father's savings and the proceeds from selling his books and furniture, gave them $460. It was enough for a down payment on land. They found 20 acres 5 miles from the Circle T Ranch, good grazing land, with a creek running through it and a stand of trees for lumber. Caleb quit his job as a ranch hand and became his own man, building their house with his own hands. It took all summer. Caleb worked dawn to dusk, cutting trees, shaping logs, raising walls. Other ranch hands helped on their days off, and slowly a cabin took shape bigger than their old place, with 2 rooms and a real stone fireplace and windows that opened to let in the breeze. Sarah helped when she could, holding boards steady, while Caleb hammered, fetching water, cooking meals for the volunteers. Samuel spent his days in a sling against her chest or napping in the shade while his father built their future. By September, the house was finished. They moved in with nothing but their clothes, the cradle, and a few pots and pans. But it was theirs. Bought with Sarah's inheritance from a father who'd tried to cage her, but ultimately set her free. That first night in their new home, they lay in bed listening to the wind in the trees outside. We did it, Sarah said. We built a life. Yeah, we did. Father would have hated this house. Would have said it was too small, too plain, too far from town. Good thing it's not his house. Sarah laughed. No, it's ours. Samuel cried from his cradle. Sarah started to get up, but Caleb stopped her. I'll get him. You rest. She watched her husband lift their son, cradling him against his massive chest. Samuel quieted immediately, soothed by his father's heartbeat. Caleb walked the floor, humming tunelessly, and Sarah felt her heart swell with love. This was what her mother had wanted, what she'd died trying to achieve. Freedom. Choice. Love without conditions. Sarah had it now, and she would never ever take it for granted. Outside, the moon rose over their 20 acres. In the distance, coyotes howled. The wind carried the smell of pine and earth and possibility. Sarah closed her eyes and slept safe, free home at last. Winter came again, but this time Sarah faced it in her own home with her own family. The cabin stayed warm with the stone fireplace Caleb had built, and the walls he'd chinked with mud kept out the worst of the wind. Samuel was 8 months old now, crawling everywhere and pulling himself up on furniture. He had Caleb's size and Sarah's determination, a combination that exhausted them both. One morning in late November, Sarah was making bread when she heard horses approaching. She wiped flour from her hands and went to the window. 3 riders were coming up the path, strangers by the look of them. Caleb was in the barn. Sarah stepped outside, one hand on the doorframe, ready to call for him if needed. The lead rider dismounted. He was older, maybe 50, with gray in his beard and kind eyes. He removed his hat. Mrs. Stone. Yes. My name's Reverend Thomas Walsh. I'm the new minister at Cedar Ridge Community Church. These are Deacon Patterson and Deacon Hughes." He gestured to the other two men. Sarah's guard went up immediately. "What do you want?" "Just to talk, if you'll allow it, about your father." "My father's dead." "I know. That's why I'm here." Walsh shifted his weight. "May we come in?" "It's a cold morning." Sarah hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. She let them into the cabin's main room. Samuel was playing on a blanket near the fire, babbling to himself. The three men looked around, taking in the simple furniture, the humble surroundings, the evidence of hard work and harder choices. "Coffee?" Sarah asked more from habit than hospitality. "Please." She poured 4 cups and sat across from them. Through the window she could see Caleb emerging from the barn, saw him spot the horses, saw him quicken his pace toward the house. "Say what you came to say," Sarah said. "My husband will be here in a moment, and he's protective." Walsh smiled. "As he should be. Mrs. Stone, I've been in Cedar Ridge for 3 months now. In that time I've heard a great deal about your father. Some of it good, his dedication, his powerful preaching. But some of it troubled me. He was a complicated man. He was a controlling man. I've spoken to several people who knew your family. Mrs. Henderson in particular was very forthcoming about what your life was like, about what your mother's life was like." The door opened. Caleb stepped in, took in the scene, and moved to stand behind Sarah's chair. His presence was a statement. Whatever they wanted with his wife, they'd have to go through him. Walsh continued, "I'm not here to judge your father or you. I'm here because before he died, your father wrote something. He gave it to Deacon Miller with instructions that it should be delivered to you after a new minister was settled. Deacon Miller gave it to me last week." He pulled an envelope from his coat. Sarah's name was written on it in her father's shaky handwriting. "He wrote me a letter. More than that, he wrote several things, but this one's addressed to you." Walsh held it out. Sarah took it with trembling fingers. "Did you read it?" "No, ma'am. That's between you and him." She turned the envelope over in her hands. Part of her wanted to throw it in the fire unread. Part of her needed to know what her father's final words to her were. "There's more," Walsh said. "Your father left a document with the church, a confession of sorts. He wanted it read publicly, but Deacon Miller felt that would only cause more gossip. With your permission, I'd like to read it to you now." "Why do I need to hear my father's confession?" "Because it's also an apology. To you, to your mother, to everyone he hurt with his pride." Sarah looked up at Caleb. He squeezed her shoulder. "Your choice as always." "All right, read it." Walsh pulled out another paper, multiple pages covered in her father's handwriting. He cleared his throat and began. "I, Samuel Hartwell, write this in sound mind but failing body, knowing my time on this earth is short. I write it not for my own salvation that is between me and God, but for those I have wronged." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Caleb's hand tightened on her shoulder. "I came to Cedar Ridge 20 years ago believing I knew God's will for everyone. I preached righteousness without mercy, obedience without love, duty without joy. I believed a man's role was to control his household, and a woman's role was to submit without question. I was wrong." Samuel crawled over to Sarah and pulled himself up on her leg. She lifted him into her lap, absently focused entirely on Walsh's words. "My wife Elizabeth tried to tell me. She begged me to see that faith could coexist with freedom, that God gave us choice for a reason. I wouldn't listen. I told her she was weak, rebellious, in need of correction. I broke her spirit day by day until she saw no option but to flee. And in fleeing, she died. I killed her as surely as if I'd struck the blow myself." Sarah sobbed. Caleb knelt beside her chair, one arm around her waist, the other around Samuel. Walsh continued reading. "For 20 years I told myself her death was her fault, that she'd sinned by leaving. But the sin was mine. I drove her to desperation. I valued my pride over her happiness. I chose control over love. And when my daughter Sarah grew into a woman, I tried to do the same to her. I tried to cage her as I'd caged her mother. But Sarah was stronger. Sarah chose freedom. and I hated her for it. "Father," Sarah whispered, "I write this so the people of Cedar Ridge will know the truth. So they will know that my daughter Sarah did not rebel against God. She escaped from a tyrant who used God's name to justify cruelty. She chose a man who treats her with respect over a minister I selected who would have treated her as property. She chose love over duty. She chose life over existence. She was right, and I was wrong." Walsh paused, letting the words settle. In the silence, Samuel babbled happily, oblivious to the weight of the moment. "If anyone speaks ill of my daughter, show them this document. Tell them her father's dying wish is that she be left in peace. Tell them she has suffered enough for my sins. And tell Sarah that I'm sorry. Sorry for the cage, sorry for the control, sorry for the striking hand and the harsh words. Sorry I couldn't be the father she deserved. Tell her I loved her even when I was too proud to show it. Tell her I died grateful she escaped me. Tell her to be happy." Walsh looked up. That's the end of the confession. He signed it and had it witnessed by 3 people, including Doc Miller. Sarah couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face. Caleb pulled her against his chest, letting her cry into his shirt, while Samuel patted her face with confused concern. Deacon Patterson cleared his throat. "There's one more thing. Your father left instructions that you're to have his mother's wedding ring. It was in a lockbox in his desk. We brought it." He set a small wooden box on the table. Sarah opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a gold ring with a small diamond, simple, elegant, beautiful. "He wanted you to have it," Patterson said. "Said you should give it to someone who chose love." Sarah slipped it on her finger. It fit perfectly. She looked down at her hands. Martha's daughter's ring on one finger, her grandmother's ring on the other. 2 women she'd never known, both lost to choices and chances. But their legacy lived on in her. "Thank you for bringing this," she said when she could speak again. "All of it." "There's something else," Walsh said carefully. "The church elders have been discussing your father's confession. We all agreed unanimously that we owe you an apology as well. We knew how your father was. We saw how he controlled you and your mother, and we said nothing. We enabled him because he was a man of God, and we didn't want to challenge authority. We were cowards, and you paid the price. You don't need to apologize." "Yes, we do. Your father may have swung the cage door, but we helped him build it." Walsh leaned forward. "Mrs. Stone. Sarah, you're welcome at Cedar Ridge Community Church anytime you want to come. You and your husband and your son. No judgment, no whispers. You have a place there if you want it." Sarah looked at the 3 men, these church elders who represented everything she'd run from. But they weren't her father. They were trying in their own awkward way to make amends for his sins. "I'll think about it," she said. "That's all we ask." After they left, Sarah sat by the fire holding her father's letter. She was almost afraid to open it. Whatever was inside would be his last words to her. His final chance to control or condemn, or maybe just maybe to love. "Want me to read it first?" Caleb asked. "No, I need to do this." She broke the seal and unfolded the pages. Her father's handwriting was shaky, the letters barely legible. She began to read aloud so Caleb could hear. "My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Good. I've lived too long already, done too much damage. But before I go, I need to tell you some things I should have said when you were small enough to hear them without prejudice." Sarah's voice broke. Caleb took Samuel and sat beside her so she could lean against him as she read. "First you were wanted. Your mother and I prayed for a child for 3 years before you came. When we learned she was pregnant, we wept with joy. I need you to know that. Whatever else I did wrong, I wanted you from the very beginning. Second, you look like your mother. Same eyes, same chin, same stubborn set to your mouth when you're determined. Every time I looked at you, I saw her. It hurt. But it was also beautiful. You're her legacy, Sarah. The best part of her lives in you. Third, I was wrong. About everything. About how to raise you, how to love you, how to prepare you for life. I thought control was love. I thought restriction was protection. I thought obedience was virtue. But love is trust. Protection is teaching someone to protect themselves. And virtue is choosing good when you could choose otherwise. You taught me that. You by leaving. You by choosing that man. You by building a life I didn't approve. You taught me what I should have known all along, that faith without freedom is just another kind of slavery. Sarah had to stop reading. She pressed her face against Caleb's shoulder and sobbed for her father, for her mother, for the years of pain they'd all endured, because one man couldn't let go of control. When she could breathe again, she continued. Fourth, about your husband. I met him before I died. He's a good man, better than I ever was. He looks at you the way I should have looked at your mother, with respect, with partnership, with love that doesn't demand ownership. I'm glad you chose him. I'm glad he chose you back. Protect that, Sarah. What you have is rare. Don't let anyone, especially the church, especially people like I was, tell you it's wrong. Fifth, about your son, my grandson. I held him once before I died. He has your mother's eyes and my nose and his father's size. He's perfect. Raise him with love, not rules. Teach him that women are people, not property. Teach him that faith is about grace, not judgment. Teach him everything I failed to teach you. Let him choose his own path, even if it's not the path you'd choose for him. That's the greatest gift a parent can give. Finally, about forgiveness. You said you forgave me before I died, but I don't know if you meant it or if you just wanted to give a dying man peace. Either way, I didn't deserve it. But if you truly forgive me, then do something for me. Live. Live fully, joyfully, freely. Love your husband without fear. Raise your son without rules meant to break his spirit. Be happy. That's all I want now. Your happiness. I spent your whole childhood trying to control it, but now I just want to witness it from wherever I end up, heaven, hell, or that gray space between where prideful men go to learn humility. I love you, daughter. I always did, even when I showed it by caging you instead of freeing you. I hope one day you'll tell your son about his grandfather. Not the righteous preacher everyone knew, but the broken man who learned too late that love is stronger than control. Tell him I died grateful you escaped. Tell him I died proud of who you became. Tell him I died sorry, but also hopeful. Hopeful that you would break the cycle of pain I started. And tell him one more thing. Tell him that redemption is real, that people can change, that it's never too late to admit you were wrong and try to do better. I changed too late to save my wife or fix my relationship with my daughter. But maybe, just maybe, this letter will help you understand that I loved you even when I didn't know how to show it. Live well, my daughter. Live free, live happy. That's my last wish for you. Your father, Samuel Hartwell. Sarah folded the letter carefully and held it against her chest. Caleb's arms came around her from behind Samuel, squirming between them. He loved you, Caleb said quietly. I know. He just didn't know how to show it in any way that didn't hurt. But he learned. At the end he learned. Too late. Maybe. But Sarah, he set you free. Not just by dying, but by admitting he was wrong. That confession, this letter, they're his way of giving you permission to be happy without guilt. That's something. Sarah thought about that. Her father had spent her whole life trying to control her, and his last act was to let her go completely. To tell the world she was right, and he was wrong. To free her from the cage of his expectations. It was something. Maybe not enough, but something. Over the next months, Sarah found herself thinking about her father's letter often. About his wish that she live fully and freely. About his hope that she'd tell Samuel about redemption. She and Caleb worked their land, slowly building a small ranch. They bought 6 cattle with money Caleb earned helping neighbors with difficult jobs. Sarah planted a garden that thrived in the good soil. Samuel grew into a toddler who ran everywhere and got into everything and laughed with a joy that reminded Sarah her father's cycle of control had ended with her. One Sunday in spring, Sarah surprised herself and Caleb by suggesting they attend church. Are you sure? Caleb asked. I want Samuel to know there's good in faith, that what my father did that wasn't God. That was just one broken man using God's name to justify cruelty. Reverend Walsh seems different. I want to give him a chance." They rode into Cedar Ridge that Sunday morning. The church was the same, but everything else felt different. People smiled when they saw Sarah and Caleb. Several women cooed over Samuel. No one whispered or judged. Reverend Walsh's sermon was about grace, real grace, not the conditional kind Sarah's father preached. About how God gives us freedom to choose because love without choice isn't love at all. About how the greatest act of faith is trusting people to make their own decisions, even wrong ones. Sarah cried through most of it. Caleb held her hand the whole time. After the service, people approached them cautiously but kindly. "It's good to see you back, Sarah. Your son is beautiful. We've missed you." Mrs. Henderson hugged her tight. "Your mother would be so proud." "You keep saying that." "Because it's true. She wanted this for you, freedom, love, choice. You got all three." That night, Sarah sat on the porch of their cabin watching the sun set over their land. Caleb was inside putting Samuel to bed. She could hear him singing off-key but enthusiastic and their son's giggling response. She thought about her mother dying in a frozen wagon trying to escape. She thought about her father dying in a bed, heavy with regret. She thought about all the people trapped in cages of duty and righteousness and fear. And she thought about herself, free, loved, alive. The door opened and Caleb joined her on the porch. He sat beside her, their shoulders touching. "Samuel wants another story," he said. "Tell him about the giant cowboy and the preacher's daughter. He's heard that one 100 times. Then tell it 101. It's a good story." "How does it end again?" Sarah smiled and took his hand. "They live happily ever after." "That's it. No moral, no lesson." "The lesson is simple." She turned to face him. This man who'd given her everything by asking for nothing. Freedom isn't something you're given. It's something you choose, even when it's hard, even when it costs you everything you've ever known, even when people you love can't understand. You choose it anyway. And what about redemption? Your father wanted Samuel to know about redemption. Redemption is real too. People can change. They can admit they were wrong and try to do better. But Sarah, she used her own name deliberately, seeing herself as a character in the story she was telling. Sarah didn't wait for her father to change. She changed herself. She broke the cycle. She chose love over duty, freedom over safety, life over existence, and that one choice changed everything. Caleb was quiet for a moment. "Is that what you'll tell Samuel when he's old enough to understand?" "That's exactly what I'll tell him. I'll tell him his grandfather was a good man who did terrible things, that he learned too late to fix them, but early enough to free the people he'd hurt. I'll tell him that love isn't control, that faith isn't fear, and that the bravest thing anyone can do is choose their own path even when everyone else says they're wrong." "And what will you tell him about us?" Sarah leaned her head on Caleb's shoulder. "I'll tell him his parents loved each other enough to risk everything, that his father was strong and gentle, that his mother chose freedom and never regretted it, that together they built something beautiful out of nothing but determination and love." Inside the cabin, Samuel called out for water. Sarah started to stand, but Caleb stopped her. "I'll get him. You stay here. Enjoy the sunset." He kissed her forehead and went inside. Sarah sat alone on the porch, watching the sky turn gold and pink and purple. Somewhere in Cedar Ridge, the church bells rang the evening hour. Somewhere in the cemetery, her parents rested side by side. Somewhere in the world, other women were trapped in cages dreaming of freedom. But here on this porch, on this land, in this life, she'd chosen. Sarah Hartwell Stone was free. She'd escaped the cage. She'd chosen love. She'd built a life worth living, and she would never, ever go back. Years later, when Samuel was old enough to ask questions, Sarah told him the whole story, about his grandfather who tried to cage her, about his grandmother who died trying to escape, about his father who offered freedom instead of control, about the choice that changed everything. "Was grandfather a bad man?" Samuel asked. "No, he was a broken man who did bad things. But he learned. At the end he learned. And that matters." "Do you miss him?" "Sometimes. I miss the father he could have been. But I don't miss the cage he built." "What's a cage, Mama?" Sarah looked at her son, this free, happy child growing up with choices and love and possibility. "A cage is when someone tells you who you have to be instead of letting you discover who you are. Your grandfather put me in a cage, but I broke out. And I'll never put you in one. You get to choose your own life, Samuel. That's my gift to you." "What if I choose wrong?" "Then you learn from it and choose again. That's what freedom means, the right to make mistakes and survive them." Samuel thought about this. "I want to be like Papa, strong and kind." "Then be that, but be it because you chose it, not because someone told you to." "I choose it." Sarah smiled and pulled her son close. "Then that's who you'll be." That night, lying in bed beside Caleb, Sarah thought about all the choices that had led her here. Choosing to speak to the giant cowboy, choosing to visit him in the dark, choosing to run away, choosing to marry him, choosing to forgive her father, choosing to live freely instead of righteously. Every choice had been hers. Every consequence had been hers to bear. Every victory had been hers to claim. "Caleb," she whispered in the dark. "Yeah. If you could go back and change anything, would you?" He was quiet for a moment. "No. Every hard thing we went through brought us here, and here is exactly where I want to be." "Me too. Even knowing what it cost your father, your home, your safety. Especially knowing that. Because what I gained was worth more than what I lost. I gained myself. I gained you. I gained freedom. That's worth any price." He pulled her close. "I love you, Sarah Stone." "I love you too, Caleb Stone." Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. Inside, Samuel slept peacefully in his bed. And in the space between waking and sleeping, Sarah finally understood what her mother had died trying to achieve, and what her father had died trying to give her. Freedom wasn't about running away. It was about running toward love, toward choice, toward life lived on your own terms. Sarah had run toward all of it. And she had won. The preacher's daughter had become the cowboy's wife, the mother of a free child, the woman who broke the cycle and chose happiness over righteousness. She had escaped the cage. She had chosen love. She had lived. And in the end, that was the only sermon worth preaching, the one written not in Scripture, but in the brave, defiant, beautiful choice to be fully, completely, unapologetically free.